Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Zhongli Wu was astonished. Just from what he could see, there were more than 3,000 soul masters flying in the air, which meant every single one of the Heavenly Soul Empire's main forces, who could use flying-type soul tools. Were the Heavenly Soul Empire making a last-ditch attempt? The third elder walked swiftly in front of Zhongli Wu and whispered, "Supreme Leader, the explosion should be from where the Second Soul Engineer Legion is stationed. Judging from how forceful the explosion was and the soul power undulations in the air, it's very likely to have been from a stationary soul cannon shell." Zhongli Wu was both shocked and furious. What? A stationary soul cannon shell? Isn't the Sun Moon Empire the only one who possesses things as terrifyingly destructive as that? How did the Heavenly Soul Empire come to have one of those? Even if they did, how did they fire it into our camp? What has happened to our surveillance soul tools? Of course, none of the evil soul masters next to him could answer his questions. Huo Yuhao was standing among the other evil soul masters like Nangong Wan was, but his attention was fully concentrated on Tang Ya. He was waiting for an opportunity, and this opportunity was slowly forming after the enormous explosion, which, along with the Heavenly Soul Empire's attack, looked like an all-out assault had begun. The Sun Moon Empire's reaction was quick. Even though the explosion caught everyone off guard, the entire camp began to move even as the hurricane of metal was wreaking havoc. Orders were given one after another, and Lin Hai, who was the marshal, had already entered the command tent, and was directing his army. The other 4 soul tool fronts weren't affected by any aftershocks or ripples. They activated their linked defensive formations, and they also began to charge their linked defensive soul tools to prepare for battle. Back when the Sun Moon Empire was constructing their base in this place, they had been prepared for a long, drawn-out battle. They had camped several dozen kilometers from Heavenly Spirit City. There were only several special stationary soul cannon shells that could reach that far. Therefore, not even their linked defensive formations could cross that distance. They had to wait for the Heavenly Soul Empire's powerful individuals to come within range before they could retaliate. A messenger swiftly ran over and announced, "Imperial Tutor, Commander Lin Hai invites you to discuss matters in the commander's tent." Zhongli Wu nodded and said, "Please follow me, consecrates. Everyone else will remain here. Do not leave unless absolutely necessary." "Yes." The group of evil soul masters bowed in acknowledgement. Zhongli Wu brought 6 consecrates, including the Scorpion Tiger Doluo, and proceeded quickly towards the command tent. The other evil soul masters all remained behind, including Tang Ya. Huo Yuhao heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Zhongli Wu didn't take Tang Ya away. He could see his opportunity coming. There were more than 30 evil soul masters remaining. There were 4 titled Doluo within this group, including Huo Yuhao, who was impersonating the masquerade Doluo, Nangong Wan, the 3rd elder, and the 4th elder. That meant their real enemies were only the 3rd and 4th elders. Tang Ya was probably the strongest one out of the other evil soul masters. Even though there were several soul Doluo, they were few in number. Deafening war cries could be heard in the skies over Heavenly Spirit City, like there weren't just many soul masters moving out in the sky. It looked like their army was also pushing forward over the ground. The Sun Moon Empire couldn't understand why the Heavenly Soul Empire had chosen to launch an assault at night, because nighttime wasn't beneficial for their foot soldiers. Furthermore, the Sun Moon Empire had several soul tool fronts in place, and with how strong they were, even titled Doluo would be going towards certain death if they charged them. The Heavenly Soul Empire would have to pay with far too many lives without Heavenly Spirit City's protection to reach them. However, the Sun Moon Empire didn't dare to underestimate their enemies, even if that was the case. The large explosion in the Second Soul Engineer Legion camp was enough to shock everyone. If the Heavenly Soul Empire could do that, what else could they do? Huo Yuhao gestured at Nangong Wan with his eyes, and Nangong Wan nodded at him softly. Nobody knew what the enormous explosion was, but Nangong Wan could faintly guess. The only thing he didn't understand was exactly how Huo Yuhao had managed to place the stationary soul cannon shell into the second Soul Engineer Legion's camp. A thread of spiritual power drifted over to Huo Yuhao and integrated into this body. Spiritual power was formless, and he wasn't afraid of anyone discovering it at all. He withdrew that thread, and could feel his spirit rejuvenate. The linked defensive dome had helped him, because his spiritual avatar had just barely risen into the sky enough before Annihilation's storm exploded. Guo Enyu had ordered the linked defensive dome's activation, which blocked the explosion's first blast, and gave Huo Yuhao's spiritual avatar the chance to escape and return. "Second brother, let me go back and get something. I'll be back in no time," Huo Yuhao said to Nangong Wan. Nangong Wan nodded and said, come back as soon as possible." "Yes," Huo Yuhao acknowledged before he proceeded towards his own tent. The 4 elders took charge of this group. Even though Zhongli Wu had just instructed them to remain here, he didn't say that they absolutely couldn't leave. The masquerade Doluo was an elder, so nobody stopped him. The relationship between elders was different from that between the consecrates. There were evil soul masters among the consecrates, and powerful foreign soul masters. Even though they had a very high status, their relationships with one another weren't intimate at all. The elders were different, as they had almost grown up together in the Holy Ghost Church, and had been together for several decades now, some even more than a century. They had a good relationship with each other. The masquerade Doluo didn't quite fit into the group, but he was still friendly enough with the other elders. Therefore, the 3rd elder and the 4th elder didn't speak out against him. Huo Yuhao quickly moved towards his tent, and returned in the blink of an eye. Nangong Wan glanced at him and nodded gently, but nobody was paying attention to them. The Sun Moon Empire's soldiers were fully mobilized. The army gathered swiftly, and military orders were passed out one after another from the command tent. The Sun Moon Empire's soul engineers were gathering at the soul tool fronts, and even appeared in the sky. Even though they were far fewer in number compared to the Heavenly Soul Empire, everyone knew that soul engineers had a great advantage on a battlefield against soul masters. They were an entire body with their linked soul tools. The explosion caused by Annihilation Storm was starting to recede and settle down. The terrifying explosion had engulfed almost a quarter of the Sun Moon Empire's main camp. Even though only the areas near the explosion's epicenter had sustained heavy losses, the explosion brought chaos and panic to the entire army. The command tent had to direct and prepare their army to defend against their enemies, and they also had to console their soldiers and take care of the wounded at the same time. The entire Sun Moon Empire's camp appeared to fall into disarray. The 3rd elder frowned and wondered aloud, "That's weird, why would a stationary soul cannon shell explode in our own camp? Could it have been an accident?" the 4th elder asked. The 3rd elder shook his head and glanced at him disdainfully. "You're so ignorant. The 2nd Soul Engineer Legion doesn't even have a stationary soul cannon shell with their status. So how could it be accidentally triggered? Even the beast-ranked Soul Engineer Legions have one at most, and they are under strict protection. We don't even have a single one in our army camp, because the 2 beast-ranked Soul Engineer Legions used their stock in the war before this." "Then what's going on?" the 4th elder asked, confused. "Can it be that spies have snuck into our camp despite our strict defenses? At least, I'm confident that nobody has that ability." Nangong Wan cut in appropriately and said, "Back when Old 7 and I went around the Heavenly Soul Empire, we discovered that Shrek Academy's people had appeared. Can this be them? It seems we have sustained incredibly large losses this time, and a Soul Engineer Legion has disappeared just like that. We aren't even talking about how many normal soldiers we've lost yet." The 3rd elder frowned even more tightly and said, "Yes. It's no wonder the Supreme Leader isn't letting us go outside. Otherwise, I would want to see what kind of stationary soul cannon shell that was." Nangong Wan said, "The Supreme Leader is doing this for our own good. He's concerned about everyone's safety. You don't have to talk so much. All right." The 3rd elder scanned the other evil soul masters. Everyone lowered their heads at the same time when they met his gaze, except for Tang Ya. Huo Yuhao said, "Second brother, why don't I take a look at the command tent? I want to find out exactly what is going on. Nangong Wan answered, go. But I reckon the supreme leader isn't in a good mood, so you'd best be careful. Yes. Huo Yuhao acknowledged as he walked towards the command tent. Evil soul masters like them, especially those who were titled Doluo, had a transcendent status within the army camp. Even though they were on high alert and heightened vigilance, nobody dared to stop them. The third elder watched Huo Yuhao leave, and he couldn't help but comment, Masquerade has been a lot more normal over the past few days. I think being with him is a lot more comfortable than before. I heard that he hasn't been ruining girls after the supreme leader chided him that day. Nangong Wan chuckled and said, maybe he's afraid that the supreme leader will punish him. The third elder grunted and said, he knows how to be afraid. This isn't the first or second time that the supreme leader has chided him for that bad habit of his. Seems like he has promised him something this time. Do you know what that is, second brother? Nangong Wan shook his head and said, that, I don't know. You'd have to ask him, or the supreme leader if you want to know. Him being more normal is a good thing. The fourth elder chortled and said, yes, that fellow is the most abnormal between us brothers. He's always living in his own world, so being more normal is a good thing. We can do anything if us brothers are united. Just as he was talking in amusement, the third elder suddenly frowned and commented, why do I feel like it's a little cold? Is the weather changing too? Nangong Wan stared at him doubtfully and said, are you getting old? How are you feeling cold? Why don't I feel cold? Boom. There was no warning at all as Nangong Wan's body suddenly froze, and he was blasted forward like a cannonball. He crashed into 4 or 5 relatively weaker evil soul masters as he flew and sent them flying away, every single one of them crying out in pain as blood spewed from their mouths. Their bodies were all twisted from the collision, and they didn't seem like they could live through that. Second brother. Both the third elder and the fourth elder were astonished. The change happened too abruptly. A blurry green shadow appeared almost instantly beside the third elder, and an incredibly sharp aura descended upon him. The third elder was startled, caught off guard. He believed himself strong, but his enemy's soul power undulations suppressed him so much that he found it hard to breathe. He clapped his hands subconsciously as he activated his Class 9 protective soul barrier and his invincible barrier at the same time. Intense explosions could be heard as his Class 9 protective soul barrier was torn apart. Golden light flickered continuously on his invincible barrier, and it seemed like it was cracking apart. An invincible barrier's greatest problem was that it could only be crafted at Class 7. It was more suitable for relatively weaker soul masters, and it was most effective at that standard. However, it was a lot less effective for and against title Doluo. The green shadow gradually materialized. It was Elder Song. Elder Song broke through the third elder's external defenses with a single strike. Her attacks were lightning quick, as countless green shadows engulfed him. Blinding golden flames lit up the sky on the other side. Deep booming phoenix calls were heard as the fourth elder was enveloped in a sphere of radiant flames. His netherworld sword flew up and down, but he could barely hold on as he was beaten back continuously. Silhouettes appeared at the same time all around them, and they swiftly launched an assault against the evil soul masters, who were so startled that they froze instinctively. These people had appeared all too suddenly. 6 or 7 evil soul masters were heavily injured from their attacks as soon as they appeared, and in addition to Nangong Wan, who was sent flying away, a third of the evil soul master's strength was shaved off. Shrek Academy was the one responsible for this sudden ambush. According to Huo Yuhao's plan, this battle had to be fought and ended as quickly as possible. Huo Yuhao was escorting his companions out when he returned to his tent before this. The Holy Ghost Church's supreme leader led 6 consecrates to the command tent, so these evil soul masters' overall strength was a lot weaker. How could Huo Yuhao let go of such an opportunity? The Heavenly Soul Empire's assault was just a feint. They had no intention of clashing head-on with the Sun Moon Empire's Soul Tool forts, and their attack happened at the time they had agreed on. To ensure that everything would be perfect, Huo Yuhao told Princess Wei Na that there were two key points to tonight's operation. First, they had to agree on a time, and secondly, the Heavenly Soul Empire had to wait until the Sun Moon Empire was in chaos and disarray from the explosion. The Heavenly Soul Empire was only to launch their feint attack when both things happened. If the explosion didn't occur, then the feint was to be cancelled. The plan was more successful than they had expected. The Heavenly Soul Empire were overjoyed when they saw such a powerful explosion going off in the Sun Moon Empire's camp, and several senior officers even believed that the Heavenly Soul Empire should take this chance to launch an all-out offensive. However, this idea was rejected by the other higher-ups, with Wei Na at the helm. The Heavenly Soul Empire wouldn't launch an offensive like that unless they had absolute confidence, because they couldn't afford to sustain the losses. The army outside Heavenly Spirit City was the last of what the Heavenly Soul Empire could muster, and if they lost this strength, then the Heavenly Soul Empire wouldn't be able to recover. Huo Yuhao had used imitation to bring everyone out of his tent, and with cover from imitation, and his formidable spiritual power, not even powerful title Doluo like the third elder and the fourth elder realized what was happening. Of course, for that to happen, Nangong Wan had to do what he needed to do. He had secretly released his soul power when they were conversing and created a barrier behind them, and trying as much as possible to block off their sense of their surroundings, allowing Shrek Academy to ambush them like that when they made their move. What was Huo Yuhao doing? He had an important task. Many of the Sun Moon Empire's senior officials, and some of the Holy Ghost Church's most powerful individuals were gathered at the command tent, which their battle was happening not far from. Their plan would have to be abandoned prematurely if the Supreme Leader came to rescue his companions, if he realized that something was wrong. Furthermore, their lives would be in danger. Therefore, Huo Yuhao went to the command tent to place a spiritual barrier outside it, and cut off any soul power undulations and sound from the outside world. Even Elder Song and Yang Shaozhe would have trouble doing this, because they had to accomplish that task with soul power, and soul power undulations were too easily discovered. Huo Yuhao could rely on his formidable spiritual power, and with imitation, his spiritual interference domain, and his immensely powerful control over his spiritual power, finishing this task was a lot easier. Huo Yuhao had seemed to leave quietly and casually, but he had already used his full strength. He had left a hidden spiritual avatar at the battlefield, and used imitation through his spiritual avatar to conceal everyone from Shrek. On the other side, he had tried his best to form the strongest spiritual barrier that he could conjure so that he could completely separate the commander's tent from the outside world, just so Zhongli Wu wouldn't discover what was happening here. Huo Yuhao was clear that he couldn't do this for long, because if he wanted to cut off sound and soul power undulations, he would have to cut off everything, and it would be relatively quiet inside the command tent. Zhongli Wu probably wouldn't realize what was happening for a short period of time, but that was hard to say if a longer time passed. The third elder and the fourth elder were suppressed in an instant when Shrek launched an all-out attack. After all, they were facing two transcendent Doluo, and that was especially true when Elder Song was a rank 97 transcendent Doluo. It wasn't hard to imagine her fighting strength with her incredible speed. But evil soul masters did have quite an advantage compared to other soul masters of the same rank. The third elder and the fourth elder weren't completely run over even though they were at an absolute disadvantage. A barrier that resembled a web of lightning appeared around the third elder and blocked Elder Song's relentless assault. It was a soul tool he had used to protect himself. The third elder's title was Dark Lightning, the Dark Lightning Doluo, and he was a soul engineer at the same time. He had fused his martial soul with a soul tool that he had created himself, and possessed a set of unique fighting abilities. He amplified the power of his soul skills with soul tools, and all his attacks possessed the force of dark lightning. This dark lightning possessed the formidable element of lightning along with a thread of evil, an evil that could only be absorbed from a pile of dead people. The third elder's powers became stronger when there were more dead people around. The Annihilation Storm had just killed many soul engineers and soldiers in the explosion, and all that dark and evil aura wasn't far from this place. The third elder could channel some of that, and he used his full strength as he unleashed his dark lightning and released all sorts of protective soul tools. Only then could he barely protect his life under Elder Song's swift and ferocious onslaught. But the third elder was feeling terribly bitter. It didn't take long before Elder Song had damaged one of his 3 strongest soul tools, while the other 2 tools also had problems to varied extents under Elder Song's formidable attacks. These losses by themselves gave him a heartache. The 4th elder's situation was even worse than the 3rd elder. The 4th elder's title was Netherworld, the Netherworld Doluor, and his martial soul was the Netherworld Sword. Back then, he had teamed up with the 3rd elder and forced Huo Yuhao to burn his spiritual sea to escape. But he was now facing the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, the Dragon Emperor Doluor Mu Yen's eldest disciple, and the next heir to the Sea God's Pavilion. Yang Xiaozhe was 1 rank beneath Elder Song in terms of cultivation, but his potential was a lot greater. Back then, Mu Yen had hopes that he could become an ultimate Doluor, since only ultimate Doluor were worthy of becoming master of the Sea God's Pavilion. Yang Xiaozhe's martial soul, the Radiant Phoenix, gave him the title of Radiant Phoenix Doluor. His Radiant Phoenix was a fusion between light and fire, just like Bei Bei's Radiant Holy Dragon was a fusion between light and lightning. Even though he didn't have a pure ultimate martial soul, the combination of the elements of light and fire was a fantastic counter to the Netherworld Doluor's abilities. There was an enormous gap between their cultivations at the same time. The Netherworld Doluor was already bleeding all over his face, and he had sustained relatively severe injuries as he fought for his life. He didn't hesitate to burn his soul power, and he channeled his soul core to the highest possible level before he could even defend himself against Yang Xiaozhe's attacks. However, even if he could stay alive in the end, he would be so heavily injured that his cultivation would probably regress. Shrek Academy had gained an absolute advantage in these 2 battles, while the other battles weren't considered too difficult. The reason for that was because Shrek had, besides 2 transcendent Doluor, a savage beast. The Ice Bear King, Little Bai, was the last to make his move, because he needed time to charge up his attack. When he walked out from Huo Yuhao's imitation, a formidable blizzard howled out and wreaked havoc. Under his deliberate control, the blizzard was maintained only around the evil soul masters, and barreled towards them. Back then, he had brought his blizzard down from the sky and held back the entire Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion. He was now unleashing it from the ground, and its force was much more terrifying. However, Huo Yuhao was afraid that the blizzard would be too strong, and the Holy Ghost Church's supreme leader would be startled. Therefore, he had asked Little Bai to reduce his blizzard's strength. Otherwise, the blizzard would have been even more frightening. Little Bai almost suppressed the rest of the evil soul masters all by himself. The gap in their cultivations and the frightening power of ultimate ice meant that those evil soul masters, who were only soul Doluor at best, could only fight to protect their lives. Shrek Academy's team had appeared way too suddenly. The evil soul masters didn't expect, even in their wildest dreams, that so many enemies would appear in the core areas of the Sun Moon Empire's camp, and that their enemies would be so powerful. They were caught off guard from the get-go. Tang Yue was possibly the calmest out of all the evil soul masters. She reacted immediately after Nangong Wan was sent hurtling away. Dark blue light flickered on her body, and 8 soul rings swiftly appeared around her. She actually had 7 black rings and 1 red ring. Nobody knew how the Holy Ghost Church had helped her soul rings evolve like that. Dark blue silver vines immediately burst through the air one after another, as they whipped towards Elder Song in an attempt to help the 3rd elder deal with her. But how powerful was Elder Song? Her green shadow godly eagle was wind type, and Tang Yue's dark blue silver vines were sliced into pieces by formless wind blades before they came too close to her. Tang Yue couldn't possibly hurt her even if Elder Song wasn't targeting her. Just as Tang Yue was about to unleash her most powerful soul skill, she suddenly saw a person appear in front of her. This person's entire body flickered with streaks of lightning, a man who was full of passion and emotion. She was just about to unleash an attack at full strength, but for some reason, she froze when she saw this man, and didn't unleash her next soul skill. Xiao. Yue, Beibei's voice trembled, sounding like a whimper. He couldn't control his emotions at all when he saw Tang Yue. Tang Yue was still as beautiful as ever, but she didn't have her liveliness and her energy from before, and seemed like a statue, like the Walking Dead. Huo Yuhao had already seen what Tang Wei was like, but he didn't dare tell Bei Bei, because he was afraid that Bei Bei would be sad. Bei Bei could now feel his heart knotting up painfully, as he saw what Tang Wei was like. Xiao Wei, I'm Bei Bei. Do you remember me? Tears flowed down Bei Bei's cheeks uncontrollably, and even though he was releasing his martial soul, he didn't have any will to fight at all. His entire body was just quivering before her. Tears didn't come easy from a real man. Ever since Xiao Wei had gone missing, Bei Bei had been going through agonizing torture in his heart. He believed that it was his fault for not taking care of Xiao Wei, that she had ended up in the Holy Ghost Church's hands. The last time they met was on the competition stage. When Tang Wei used her blue-silver tyrant spear and impaled him, he had really wanted to just let go and liberate himself. He was absolutely willing, even if he had to die in Tang Wei's embrace. This was the second time that they had met after that time, now among endless soldiers, and in the darkness of the night. Bei Bei stared at Tang Wei, who was like a zombie, and he couldn't control his emotions at all. Tang Wei stared at Bei Bei, who had tears covering his entire face. She seemed a little frozen as well, but her hand was still slowly rising in Bei Bei's direction. Her eyes suddenly became cold in the next moment, and countless dark blue shadows lunged right at Bei Bei. Bei Bei just stood there, motionless. He still didn't believe that Tang Wei would harm him, even at a time like this. "What are you doing, Bei Bei?" Shu Sancha shouted in shock, and a golden light appeared in front of him in the next moment. An enormous shield protected Bei Bei behind it, blocking all the blue shadows going right for him. Bei Bei's body trembled as he snapped around at Shu Sancha, who was rushing to his side. "Don't interfere, Sancha. I don't believe Xiao Wei will harm me." Shu Sancha retorted angrily, "Are you insane? Can you not see that she has been brainwashed, and her mind is being controlled? We have to leave as quickly as possible. Little junior brother cannot keep that up for too long. What kind of romantic game are you playing at now? If you want to move Xiao Wei and let her recover, you have to wait for when everyone has returned safely. Why are you so muddled? Are you trying to kill everyone?" Shu Sancha didn't stop, as he hollered furiously at Bei Bei. His Xuanwu shield became a shield wall as he blocked all the area attacks from Tang Wei's dark blue-silver grass. Even though Tang Wei was already an 8-ringed soul Doluor, Shu Sanchi's strength had increased exponentially ever since he had fused with his spirit. His golden tortoise was hovering beside him, and it released circles of golden light one after another that greatly boosted his Xuanwu shield. Bei Bei was momentarily stunned after Shu Sancha berated him. However, some clarity finally returned to his eyes as he said, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." He swiftly came out from behind Shu Sanchi's shield as he spoke, and he pounced right at Tang Wei amidst flickering golden lightning, unleashing his radiant holy dragon. Bei Bei used Thunderous Dragon Claw, his first soul skill, and slashed at Tang Wei as he used Vigorous Thunderbolt, his second soul skill, at the same time. Thousands of streaks of lightning permeated the skies as they sliced away the dark blue-silver grass in the air. An elegant white stallion flickering with golden light appeared before Bei Bei, and dragon scales immediately covered Bei Bei's body. It was Bei Bei's spirit, his heavenly dragon horse. Back then, Bei Bei's blue lightning tyrant dragon had officially evolved into a radiant holy dragon after he fused with the heavenly dragon horse. Bei Bei's aura now swelled as his spirit appeared. Even though he wasn't using his martial soul true body, his fighting strength was near that standard with the heavenly dragon horse's support. Tang Wei's eyes were ice cold from the beginning to the end. She raised her hands and made a grab with her left hand in the air as her blue-silver tyrant spear gradually took form. She pushed out with her right hand towards Bei Bei, and an enormous bluish-black web opened up. It blocked his thunderous dragon claw before it reached for him. The web was becoming larger and larger as it flew, and it could hold its own against Bei Bei's radiant lightning. Bei Bei stomped his right foot heavily on the ground as the lightning on his body flourished. That was his third soul skill, Thunderous Fury. Golden circles of light were released beneath his feet in the next moment. He used Dragon Emperor's Realm Quake, and his aura rose incredibly quickly to an extremely fearsome level. This was the reason why Bei didn't use his martial soul true body. His fighting strength would be even stronger if he was in his martial soul true body, but his Dragon Emperor's realm quake could only be used at its full strength with Dragon Emperor demonic rupture. His martial soul true body didn't have such delicate control, and at the bottom of it all, he was still afraid that he would hurt Tang Yue. A pair of enormous dragon claws rose as they slashed at the enormous web. The large web dropped down and closed up as it trapped him inside. Bei fixed his gaze as he shouted, and tore to his sides savagely. He realized as he was tearing that the web was both extremely viscous and tough at the same time, and he couldn't tear open this web even with his strength. Furthermore, there were many bluish-black spikes on this web, which released extremely pure energies of darkness that attempted to worm their way into his body. Bei would have been injured as he slashed against those spikes if not for his radiant holy dragon's scales protecting him. But Bei was a powerful soul sage, after all. With his heavenly dragon horse supporting him, he used Dragon Emperor demonic rupture, as blinding golden light shot into the air. Intense energies of light gave way to pure power as the large web was torn in two. As he tossed those two pieces away, they were thrown towards two evil soul masters in the distance. However, Bei could clearly feel his scalp going numb in this moment. Tang Yue's blue-silver tyrant spear had taken form, and the tip of the spear was pointed right at him. She was in a stance like she was going to throw it. In this moment, Tang Yue was the only person that Bei could see. He could still vividly remember, back on the competition stage, Tang Yue had used her blue-silver tyrant spear to impale him. He didn't dodge last time, and he had used his passionate and warm blood to meet Tang Yue's attack. He wanted Tang Yue to feel the love that he had for her in his blood. Back then, Bei felt that Tang Yue seemed to recover part of her memory from his repeated calls. They were almost in the exact same situation in this moment. Many emotions surfaced in Bei's mind as he faced her blue-silver tyrant spear once more. Tang Yue clutched her blue-silver tyrant spear as she stared at the man who had just torn apart her spiderweb binding. She seemed to be momentarily stunned, and her ice-cold eyes flowed with a tinge of hesitation. Shu Sanxia arrived beside Bei with a single stride. He wasn't afraid of her blue-silver tyrant spear, and his Xuanwu shield was at the ready. Sanxia. Bei suddenly growled. What? Shu Sanxia turned around at him. Bei stared at him deeply and said, "Leave this to me. Trust me." Shu Sanxia quivered as he said solemnly, Bei. Bei lowered his voice. "Trust me." Shu Sanxia took a deep breath. He held onto his golden Xuanwu shield as he took a step back. However, he didn't leave the battle. The Ice Bear King, Little Bai, was controlling the entire battlefield. Shrek Academy's warriors had the absolute upper hand even though they were few in number. The most intimidating ones from the Tang sect were Ji Juechen and Yi Gai. Ji Juechen's judgment sword unleashed formidable sword intent, and every swing of his sword was a nightmare for those evil soul masters. Yi Gai's situation was even better. Her martial soul was a holy angel, while her type wasn't light. Instead, her martial soul was a holotype martial soul. Her aura would be strengthened every time she killed an evil soul master, and here, she immediately surpassed the strength of a normal soul sage. Yi Gai's martial soul was one of the strongest ones within the entire Tang sect. In terms of just martial souls, her martial soul probably surpassed either of Huo Yuhao's. The element of holiness contained within a holy angel was extremely rare, and was born to fight against evil. A holy angel would be strengthened every time it killed something evil. Yi Gai had just slaughtered an evil soul emperor, dissipating his martial soul into dust and nothingness. What she gained from this kill was equivalent to cultivating for 3 months by herself. It wasn't easy to find something evil from day to day, but the Holy Ghost Church was a most suitable opponent for Yi Gai to strengthen herself with. Furthermore, almost every single evil soul master's abilities would be countered before her holy angel. The element of light could counter evil, but it wasn't as strong. Evil soul masters had been investigating how to deal with the element of light for many years, and they had a set of their own methods. However, there wasn't much they could do against the element of holiness. Holiness was a natural counter to them, and holiness always trumped evil, so it was a one-sided affair. The reason why the element of holiness was so powerful was that it had almost no natural enemies, while it could counter all evil and darkness. This video will end here.